Hello and welcome back to Up the Villa. This is our predicted lineup for Fulham v Aston Villa. On this episode, we're going to go in depth on tactical analysis of Fulham. We're going to go to look at some of the stats as well. We're also going to look at still images to see what Fulham have been doing this season. Then finally, we will predict the Villa lineup. And then I've got a little mini announcement about sort of personal behind the scenes at the end of this episode that will hopefully enhance Up the Villa as well at the same time. So if you are new around here, make sure you are subscribing, smash the likes. Let's have around 800 likes. Let's try and get to that like target, and more importantly, comment your thoughts on everything that I discuss and get involved on this episode. So Fulham under Marco Silva are a really good tactical coached side. They've got a bit of everything. They've been really impressing me so far this season as well. So let's go to the tactical pad. Let's have a look at what they're all about. Let's break them down and then we'll go from there as well. And so on paper, Fulham are a 4-3-3, but we know that football isn't played on paper. So they are obviously going to evolve. They're going to merge. They're going to become this really fluid attacking team with a really good system that complements it well with strikers, with attacking midfielders, with defenders, and with a keeper that can play it from the back as well. So Fulham, how do they transition to what they are? So they're a 4-3-3 that move into a 2-3-5. They move into this 2-3-5 with the right back pushing to the halfway line, with Robinson pushing to the halfway line. Iwobi stays high, Traore stays high, Jimenez stays high, and Smith Rowe and Pereira go into those advanced areas as well. So here we can see that they've moved now with the ball, with possession. They've transitioned into a 2-3-5. Their 2-3-5 is heavy on wing play and fullbacks. The wingers will invert in Iwobi and Traore, and the fullbacks will overlap with Tete and with Robinson as well. So their big threats come from out wide, but one of their big things that I have noticed with them are their rotations and how this team moves around and how each other have a fundamental function to making this team tick, to making it move. And it goes from centre halves right up until the strikers. So the centre halves in Anderson and Bassi complement each other really well. Bassi is a lot more physical. He can recover. He's got a recovery speed. He's aggressive. He's a player that can win aerials, and he looks to be that dominant force at the back for Fulham. Anderson, on the other hand, is more of an easy on the eye, ball playing centre half who is really good at pinging those long balls. I think what we'll see and what you can see from Fulham is that he's got that threat to be able to ping these balls into channels. He's able to find players when they are on the counter-attack as well. And I think this defensive two complement each other really well. One of my favourite players in the Premier League is Robinson. He's an attacking left-back that gets forward. He's developed his game quite a lot. He's really improved his final ball. He's improved his decision-making. And within this system, this left-hand side is one of Fulham's biggest threats to any team in the Premier League. He will get high. He'll stay wide. He'll hug that touchline. But he's got a really good partnership with Iwobi and a good partnership with Smith Rowe as well. You'll find that both players can stay on the same line. They can actually stay on the same line on the pitch as well. They'll start in this position through here. Iwobi will drift in field and Robinson will go on that overlap through there as well. Robinson can play in that little bit of a pocket through there as well. But this is a big threat for Fulham. It's this left-hand side. And from the Villa point of view, what we want to do is we want to keep that distance between Iwobi and Robinson as well. Sasha Lukic has really picked up from what Polina was doing, who's gone to Bayern Munich. He acts as a single anchor in this area, and he has a good link up with the defenders, and he's just integral to making sure that that back two is protected at all times. He protects the back four, and he's got that anchoring role of making sure that he just stops anything that's going to be a threat through the middle of the pitch. But in my opinion, he can be got at, he can be isolated. And that's an area where I think the Villa midfield, especially that box midfield, can probably get some joy as well. Smith Rowe and Pereira are number 8/number 10s in this system. And their job is to help out Sasha Lukic in there as well. Pereira can drift out wide to that right-hand side, but he has a real big presence through here as a number 10, wants to get on the ball, wants to put balls out wide, wants to play those through balls, wants to link up everything. Smith Rowe has showed the capabilities of the Fulham recruitment team of having the ability to not only find a good player, but to find a player that suits their system. And how can he improve the Fulham system? And he does it in a way in which that he can drop deeper, he can link up with Bassey, he can link up with Anderson, he can make sure everything starts ticking. He's got a relationship with Robinson and Iwobi, comes a little bit deeper, helps protect the back two as well when he drops into these areas, and he makes sure he's covering the ground as well. But he can really drive forward, and his progressive carries, his progressive passes are something that really helps Fulham in this role as well. Pereira, I've already mentioned, does so as well. Iwobi and the front three of Fulham with Traore, Jimenez and Iwobi play quite narrow. You'll be seeing on the average positions that they play in very central areas, and then their width will be coming from the fullbacks as well, like I've already mentioned. So that link up through there as well is really good. And we know the threat of Traore, he can run and run and run and run. Decision making, maybe not so good, but he's a massive threat, even if they're on transition as well. What we've seen over Fulham over a number of years is that they have been a transitional side that have played counter-attacking football. But as they are evolving under Marco Silva, they're now, if you're looking at the team comparison charts, playing as a more possession-based side. They are slap bang in the middle of slow and intricate and fast and direct. A little bit like what Villa were last season. Now Villa are moving into a more slow and intricate side as well. So they can do a little bit of everything. They've got really good build-up. They can play it from the back. They use Leno as one of their players that help build up. So their build up is a 3, and they can build up with the shape and the system that I've showed you, but they can also go a lot more direct. They've got Iwobi that can run in behind. They've got Traore that can do the same. And what they've got is they've got players that can allow players to run off and run behind. Iwobi can sometimes come short, which can leave space for Jimenez to run into, can leave space for Smith Rowe to run into as well. A little bit like Aston Villa, like I say, there are similarities between the two teams. Jimenez is a striker that can play on the shoulder. He wants to stay high. He wants to get involved, but he wants to be able to get into those positions where he can finish those chances. He will stay in and around the two centre halves. Muñiz is a little bit different. He will want to drop into this area through here. And then what happens when Muñiz drops, you'll see players like Pereira and Smith Rowe playing in those more advanced positions. If you look at the average positions when Muñiz plays, you'll see that Pereira is normally more advanced than what Muñiz is. So they've got those different options through there. I do think against Villa, it probably will be Jimenez who's, scoring goals at the minute for him as well. So it looks like it probably will be Jimenez. They are quite big on triangles and their partnerships with each player. Triangles enable them to have structure, but it also enables them to have movement. It enables them to have that passing range and that comfort that they know that the players are going to be able to move and drift into positions. You've got triangles that are going to be all over the pitch. We can see triangles that are made up everywhere within this Fulham team. So it's really a well-coached team who are evolving, who are getting better. And I think Villa have got to be near enough perfect to get a result in this game, because at Craven Cottage, Fulham are playing really, really well. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at some of the graphics that Earl has sent us, AVFC Scout. You know him by now. On the debriefs, absolutely smashing it. So he's took this channel to another level as well. And what we can now start to see is everything that I see with my eyes and my analysis, we can then now start to see within the images and with the stats of what Fulham are actually doing during their numbers as well. So here we can see the average positions and passing networks over the last 3 matches. So the last 3 matches that Fulham have played, we can see the average positions. We've got their back 2. We've got Sasha Lukic, number 20, as their holding anchor. We've got 33, Robinson, number 2, Tete, high and wide. And then we've got those attacking players in those central areas becoming quite narrow. So I think what we can see, the top combinations passing-wise, we've got Bassey to Anderson, Anderson to Tete, Tete to Anderson. So these are left-back, right-backs, centre-halves linking up. Then we've got the link-up between Iwobi and Smith-Rowe. We've got Smith-Rowe and Iwobi. So that link-up is there as well. So their partnerships are good. They're starting to blossom. They're rotating. They're moving around. They're finding each other. And they are looking pretty lethal as a unit in those attacking areas. But what you can see, and what I can see, are gaps for Villa to exploit. There's one player that is that anchor that Aston Villa's box midfield should be able to overrun. We've got areas where fullbacks want to go forward, which should mean that Villa can push those players backwards, but also find gaps. There's pockets and space for Villa to really cause some damage. We can see areas of influence over the last 3 games. We've got Robinson, who goes high and wide. He does come inside a little bit. Tete is a player that will drift inside a little bit more. We've got Bassey and Anderson. We have got Smith-Rowe, Lukic and Pereira, and it shows that Pereira is comfortable moving quite far to that right-hand side. When he goes to the right, then you'll see Traore come inside as well. We've also got the front 3 being really narrow, like we've mentioned. Iwobi's covering a lot. He's out wide. He's coming inside. Traore doing exactly the same as well. We've got shots for Fulham. They've had 15.7 over the last 3 matches, which is decent. But they are also conceding 15.3 as well, which means that if Villa can get some shots off, then hopefully Villa can score some goals. And it's a comfortable game for Aston Villa. 3 o'clock kickoff on Saturday. Right, now what we're going to do is we're going to go and have a look at some of the still images which will show you what Fulham have been doing over the course of the last 7 games, and we'll merge my analysis with what I have actually been seeing during their games as well. And so you can see here we have got their build-up. We've got the keeper who wants to get involved. He makes up that back 3. He's pretty high here. And then we can see we've got Bassey and we've got another player through there as well who's going to be actively involved in build-up. We've got the anchor of Sasha Lukic as well, who is going to be the player that wants to come and receive the ball in these areas. He'll want to turn and then he'll want to get involved and spray those passes as well. We've got Tete and we've got Robinson, who's going to be off screen as well, who are high and wide. So that's going to show you a little bit about their build-up. Again, what I was mentioning earlier, we've got Robinson, who's high and wide as well. So he's getting into that halfway line zone. You can see Tete's feet over there as well. We've got Smith-Rowe and we've got Iwobi. Iwobi wants to come and receive the ball off Robinson, which then means that the Manchester United defender is going to follow that run of Iwobi, which then in turn leaves an isolated zone for the striker to run into. And then we've got Smith-Rowe that can peel off the back of this Manchester United midfielder as well. So rotations, movement, opposition teams, a lot of problems against Fulham. So it's something that Villa have got to make sure that we are on as well. Here we can see that Fulham within their build-up are starting to get into that 2-3-5 formation. We've got a right back over on that far side over here. We've got Robinson getting into that zone he wants to get into. We've got a central midfielder making up that 3. We've got the 2 defenders that are going to be through here. And then Smith-Rowe's going to move and make up that front 5 for Fulham as well. On the next slide, what we've got here is got their link up between their 2 wide players on that left-hand side. We've got Iwobi that's going to drive into that central space. And then we've got Robinson, who's going to be on that overlap that's going to want to get to that byline. It's important that when you're playing against Fulham, that Ipswich do really well here is that they're making sure that they're doubling up. We've got a player that can track the run of Robinson, and then we've got the run that's going to be able to track Iwobi. So doubling up, especially on that left-hand side, is vitally important to not allowing Fulham to have as much joy as what they want on the left-hand side. I mentioned earlier about them being on the same line. We can see here now on that far side that we've got Robinson that's on the touchline. We've got Iwobi as well, and that is what their starting position is. So you can see Tete going to get into that advanced area, and then you're going to leave the one player here, one centre-half here. You've got Lukic through there as well. So if you can win the ball back, it shows that there are areas through here that we can exploit. There's midfield areas such as Rodgers that can get on the ball. And then you've got areas where their fullbacks are going forward as well. But you cannot allow central midfielders this much time and space through there. But what this does show is that they have an overload on that left-hand side, and you've got to make sure you're picking up Iwobi and you are picking up Robinson, because now I've got an image of how this has panned out. Iwobi has drifted more central, so he's gone inside a little bit. And then we've got that overlap of Robinson, who's got to the byline, who's able to pick out his pass or his cross. So it shows the areas in which Fulham want to work the ball and want to get into, and where they pose problems. Big problem. We know this guy. We know he can run and run and run and run and keep running. Decision making at times is sometimes a little bit of a problem. He's got a ball here, he's got a ball here, or he can just drive. So on transition, like I've mentioned, they do play possession, but they can counter. They are quick, direct. They've got players, they've got runners, they've got a lot of options and a lot of players that want to get on the end of stuff as well. So we don't really want to be in this scenario. We've seen this time and time again with Villa over the years that on transition, we do leave ourselves a little bit short. So we've got to make sure that we are pressing well. We've got enough cover that we aren't being put into this scenario, because they can pose massive problems, which, you know, we just don't want to get into again. And then finally here now, we can see that Sasha Lukic has time, space to pick a pass where he wants to go. And you've really got to make sure that we shut that down and we stop it from happening, really. So that's all my analysis, really, on Fulham. And I am one take Robinson. So I do this all in one take. So I think it's pretty impressive. So now we're going to go to the tactical pad again. And we're going to predict the Villa lineup. And finally, we're just going to see how Villa can hurt this Fulham team, the areas that we really want to get into, and just some of the ways in which everything I've spoke about Fulham, what can Villa do to stop Fulham being so good? So I think I've got it. I think I've got it sussed out on what we can do. Right, so here we have the Fulham lineup, and now we're going to predict the Villa lineup. So we're going to go with Martinez is going to go in goal for Villa, obviously. We've got Cash at right back. Not sure whether Consul will be back, so we'll go Carlos, we'll go Pau, and we will go Digne, solid back five for Aston Villa. If Consul's fit, ready to play, I think he was about 1 to 2 weeks, which the 2 weeks would take us to this game, so I'm not sure. Emery spoke about players being back after the break, Onana, McGinn, Ramsey, so hopefully Onana's back. I think he would be a big player for Villa in this game, especially. Tielemans is going to be in there for me. On the left-hand side, if McGinn's back, I'll go McGinn. If it's an option out of Ramsey or McGinn, I would go McGinn. McGinn did an interview after the Bayern Munich game, and he spoke about Emery having a word with him and telling him he needs to be better. So I'm going to go with McGinn in there for me. I think that's who I'm going to go with. Rodgers will be in that sort of number 10 shadow striker role. We're going to go with Ollie Watkins, and we are going to go with Leon Bailey as well. Bailey out wide, Jadon's injured. So that's my team. Where do I think Villa can get the upper hand and beat Fulham? Now, there's a couple of areas that I think are vitally important in this game. We know that whoever plays with Watkins will drop into this box midfield and will make up this box shape for Aston Villa. So where I think the game will be won in this area for Villa is if we actually look at this central midfield area. We've got 3 Fulham players in Smith Rowe, Lukic and Pereira. I've done the opposition preview and he's told me that Lukic is out, so Sander Berg will be in, which I think is a big positive for Villa. And I look at this now and I'm thinking, if you're looking at it logically on basic numbers, they are outdone by 4-3. So our midfield should be able to dominate that central area of the pitch. We've got good balance in there, physicality of Onana, the passing range of Tielemans. So I think that is one area that I think Villa will get joy in. The next area is an area that I think is vitally important. There are two areas, and that is out wide on both sides. Now, out wide on both sides, it's important because we know they'll be heavy with Iwobi and Robinson. We saw against Wolves the introduction of Bailey when he was able to push back Aït-Nouri. That's going to be vitally important. So if Bailey can occupy Robinson, keep that distance between Robinson and Iwobi to a level where they can't have that partnership, I think will be really good for Aston Villa. Onana will have to do a lot of heavy work in this area anyway, watching those runs on the blind side of Smith Rowe, Iwobi. And then on the opposite side as well, Tete will want to be high and wide, so it's important that we get our left back in those attacking areas, which will mean that Tete will have to do a lot of defending. Then Traoré is going to be in that area where, you know, McGinn could sort of come out and cover, and then if we need to double up, we can do as well. So those areas. But then there's another big area for Villa when they leave their central midfielder in that anchor on his own. We'll have Rodgers that can be able to move in between there, quickly find those passes to Rodgers, in turn be able to transition and work towards the Fulham goal as well. So it's going to be interesting. And I'm really looking forward to the game. It's going to be a real good tactical battle. They do commit players forward. So if Smith Rowe, Pereira, Traoré have gone forward, then we can get into these areas where we're going to get our players in and around Ollie Watkins. I think Bailey is going to be vitally important that he poses a massive threat on the Fulham goal as well. So, like I say, hopefully you've all enjoyed that tactical analysis of Villa and Fulham. And if you're a Fulham fan and enjoyed it, let me know. Villa fan, let me know. A little bit of personal news, and it's kind of to do with the pod, but not personal to me, is that I'll tell you the backstory. Basically, when I left sixth form, I was going to go to uni and do sports coaching. I didn't do it. I went to Tony and Guy, and I became a hairdresser. I worked for a really good hairdressers. Then I went to a Tony and Guy, and I was there for around 14 years. I wasn't just a hairdresser that sort of just cut hair and just that was it in a shop. I was part of the art team for Tony and Guy. I did London Fashion Week. I got to finals of competitions. I was on the breakthrough team for Tony and Guy, which nurtures and gives you a scholarship with young talent. And I had a really good career, but I didn't do my coaching. And through this, I have a love for coaching, a love for football, as you can probably tell, a love for tactics. So I've decided to do my coaching badges. And I'm starting with my introduction to coaching with the FA in November. Behind the scenes, I've already done my safeguarding and my first aid. And I have a view to try and get to as far as I can. The big one that I want to get to is first off is the UEFA C license. And I'll be involved with a team, and hopefully through learning about coaching and sessions and tactics, it will further enhance my knowledge of the game and should make the content a lot more better, because I'll have a better understanding of what to watch for within how players are being coached, how they're developing, etc. So I think it's really exciting, and it's something that I'm passionate about. So behind the scenes, I am going to be working on that, which in turn should make, especially in this area, a lot better. And even analysing games and analysing players when they're in a bit of poor form, etc. So I'm really looking forward to it. Hopefully you've enjoyed this episode. If you've got this far, on your way out, just smash a like. It helps the channel. If you've enjoyed it, you must have enjoyed it to get this far. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Get involved on every episode. Comment your thoughts. We've got opposition preview that's going to be out tomorrow as well. So thank you, everybody. Up the Villa.